Take control of your mind the way you do your breathing. In through your nose and out through your mouth. Legs crossed, back straight, eyes closed. Feeling the power of you controlling your own breathing. The same way you control your mind. One breath at a time, one thought at a time. Good air and thoughts in, bad air and bad thoughts out. Now, let's see our vision today. Let's see ourselves doing the best we can on all the exercise. Morning, everybody. I want to talk today about the power of positivity and just how powerful our minds are in looking for positivity everywhere. I remember Tony Robbins saying that whatever we focus on, that's where energy flows. So where focus goes, energy flows. And energy, your thought, your ability to think, is the greatest form of energy in the universe. So think about that and let's apply it today. Look for positivity everywhere. Be relentless. Wherever you are, whatever you're experiencing, whoever you're with, look for the positive. It is not being blind to reality. It is taking your powerful mind and actually focusing on what's positive in this world, because there's so much that's positive. You do that, and that power of your positivity is endless, and it will affect endless others. So I challenge you now and forever to do it. Have a great day, everybody.
I think just generally the path to leadership should not be through, basically MBA business school situation. It's like, it should be kind of work your way up, do useful things, and there's a bit too much of somebody goes to a high profile MBA school and then kind of parachutes in as the leader, but they don't actually know how things work. They could be good at, say, PowerPoint presentations or something like that, and they can present well, but they don't actually know how things work because they do not, they parachute in instead of like working their way up.
Yeah, they never went through an apprenticeship, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, they're kind of like just not aware of what's really needed for to make great products. So, I mean, I don't want to trash MBAs too much here, and I actually do have a dual undergrad, Wharton undergrad, and physics at UPenn. So. So I have I have direct exposure to business school, and I went to do undergrad business school with physics, but and I was a teaching assistant for 2 semesters, and I graded MBAs and undergrads. But I think it's just a little bit too much. Like people look at MBA school as like I want to parachute into being the boss instead of earning it, and like I don't think that's good.
Drew's gonna kick us out this time. Here we go.
Yeah, so I think what Elon is saying is like a lot of times you've got kind of like MBAs who specifically come in who are looking to get a leadership role. A lot of times they just don't simply have they have the high level business acumen of like understanding a P&L and things like that, but they don't necessarily truly understand what is going on in a particular organization, especially like obviously Elon with Tesla and SpaceX are very engineering-centric organizations. So if you aren't fully in accordance with the engineering that goes behind product development and things like that, it's hard for an MBA to come into that type of environment and truly understand what's going on And what Elon's saying is like, take the time to understand how the machine works and how things are actually designed and developed, and work your way up and demonstrate through the activities that you're doing that you're leadership capable, as opposed to feeling like you need to go out, get an MBA, and then parachute in to an organization to be the leader. A lot of times having that practical experience can give you a considerable edge in just understanding how things work.
That's what I was feeling. I was hearing the same thing.
The random in the middle. Amen. Okay, let's go.
I'm just saying. I was when I was listening to that, as Drew, expounded on it. To me, I was hearing Elon is valuing practice or being practical over theory, experience over education. Like really doing the freaking work, because how else you gonna understand what you're doing unless you get out there and actually do the work? So he was going beyond the book smarts and like get out here in the real world and get into the trenches and do it and earn the leadership role. Not someone just give it to you because you have a piece of paper. Earn it, because when you earn it as a leader, you can have more empathy and more sympathy and more understanding with the other people that you're leading go through. And so you just gotta really get out here, and there's no substitute. You gotta do the work. And I think that's what he was saying on a practical level.
I'm going to take it in a few ways and see if these guys want to chop it up. First off, for the MBA thing, when people ask me, should I get an MBA, or even should I go to college or university in the first place, I think your actions need to map to your ambition. So what do you want to do with your life? And in some roles, having an MBA is really, really, really important. And in others, it's not. So if you want to be an entrepreneur, if you're watching this video and you want to be an entrepreneur, having an MBA is not going to help you. Being in college is not going to help you. Nobody has ever asked me, what college should I go to? Do you know if I went to college? I mean, I did. I went to University of Toronto, but it hasn't served me at all. Now, I don't regret going. At the time, it was my backup plan, and I didn't know that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. Entrepreneur wasn't even a thing at the time. So I don't regret going, but if that's your ultimate ambition, then yeah, being an MBA or going to university is probably not going to help you. But if you want to be a doctor, you better go to school. You're not going to have much luck as a surgeon if you're self-taught, right? So that's just on the MBA college side. Next is, in terms of earning it, that's really in the eye of the beholder, I think. So if you look at Elon, this is somebody who really, 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 really values the technical engineering side of the business. And so earning it in whoever you're trying to pitch and present to, and if you're an entrepreneur, you got to earn it then with your customers, they will value different things. So some people will really, really value the engineering part of things and completely disregard the business process, the marketing, the sales, the raising capital. And other people, they really, really value the branding and the marketing and the salesmanship of it, right? And so that just gets down to knowing who your audience is, or in entrepreneurship, knowing who your customer is, and it doesn't have to appeal to everybody. If you're gonna be selling to an Elon Musk, you better know the specs, of your product. But when I was my first company was biotech software, and my biggest fear was, I'm 19, I don't know anything about science, it was my worst subject, I'm not the programmer, and I was afraid to get on calls and talk to people because I thought it would be exposed, because I didn't know enough about the product that my partners built and they were the experts. What I realized when I was talking to a lot of these people at the labs, our customers, they actually didn't even know all the details either, and they didn't want to talk about all the details of how their product was made. They wanted to talk on the business side of things, which I could really help and do. When I talked to media about our story, they didn't care about how our product was made. They care about the story that I was helping wrap things in. And so I was actually underselling my own ability on the sales and marketing and branding and storytelling because I didn't know enough about the product knowledge. So it's not that one is right or wrong, it's knowing who your customer is, knowing who your audience is, and making sure that you are being their chief goal officer. Right? Understand what they want and see if you can give it to them. And then the last part is just around leadership. And this was an interesting point where I don't think earning it on the technical side prepares you at all to be a leader. The fact that you have product knowledge and how something is built and made does not give you any background in actually helping train people. And I don't think we go to school to learn how to be a leader or train people. You might have got it if you were in organized sports and you happen to have a great coach, in your school who was teaching you, maybe you went to the military and you got out of that, or maybe you just got the good fortune of being in the corporate world and had a great boss who taught you. But where do we learn leadership skills? There's so many people who are great at a skill set who then get promoted to be a manager and then hate their life because now they have to manage people instead of managing process or product, and they really fail and they struggle. And so one, that's self-awareness of you. Do you want to be a leader? Do you want to manage people? Do you like the idea of managing 100 people or 5 people? Or do you like just being a solo person yourself? And that's cool, that's all you're doing. I like investing into people. I like managing people. I like seeing them grow and learn and get better. But that may not be something that you really want to do. And if you do want to do it, then it's changing your skill sets to be able to learn, how do I work with people, manage them, guide them, going to courses and training and reading books and being around people who are doing it. Because learning more about the product or the thing that you're selling, I don't think positions you at all to be a great leader for the people who are managing that product. I talked a lot.
Good morning, everybody. Today, Jack Ma ends off his top 10 rules for success with us. And his last one is one that stands out for me. It's have passion. This is one that is the activating force in anything great that people have ever done, that you can ever do. You have to have passion. It has to be so in you that you love it, that you breathe it, that you think it. Think about your loved ones. Think about the people you love most in this world. Think about something you've ever loved most in this world. It could be something like, I don't know, playing a video game or anything. Something that has such a powerful force. If you can have that passion and apply it to something that is worthwhile in serving others, there is no limit to what you can do. My passion is spreading as much positivity in this world, where I stand, where I am, with the help of everybody. So I use Jack Ma's thoughts. I hope you do, for now and forever. Have a great day, everybody.
We live in such a sedentary culture, right? Where we're spending 8, 10, sometimes 12 hours a day sitting, staring at our screens. So we're living from the neck up. And many of us have lost touch with the wisdom and the intelligence that exists in our physical bodies because simply we're not moving enough. And as someone who's been a Nike athlete, fitness is a big part of my life. Movement is a huge part of my life. I see very clearly when I am moving consistently, I have access. It's like a channel opens up where there is so much intelligence and so much insight that has not to do with my logical, reasonable brain. It has to do with another plane. And when I don't, I get up here and it all gets twisted and then I'm unclear. So if you are facing an opportunity, a possibility to say yes to a job, a speaking engagement, a date, who knows, it could be any realm of life, and you're not sure whether you should move ahead with it, here's what you need to do. Get to a place where you're quiet, nothing's around, make sure that there's no technology, and I would invite people to close their eyes while they do this. So ask yourself, does the idea of moving ahead with this, of saying yes to this, make me feel expansive or contracted? In the nanosecond after you ask yourself that question, your body will have a physical response.
Need motivation?
Watch Top 10 with Believe Nation.
Hey, it's Evan Carmichael, and I make these videos because you are probably the most ambitious person in your circle, but you know you're capable of more, and you get that push by surrounding yourself with the best. So today, let's learn from one of the best, Marie Forleo, and my take on her top 10 rules of success. Enjoy.
So let's walk through what expansive.
Everyone who's listening and watching right now, do this with us.
Yes.
Yeah.
So expansive, and I'll just give some possibilities, but yours might show up differently. So expansive may actually be as though your shoulders are relaxing and your chest is opening up. Expansive may feel like even your physical body is moving ahead in space. Expansive may feel like a twinge or a tingle of excitement or joy or anticipation, even if the notion of this feels intimidating to you or like something you've never done before. There is a lightness, a moving forward, a ever so subtle, visceral yes, whether it shows up in word form or merely through the movement of your body. That's expansive. Now, let's look at the flip side. If you ask yourself this question, does the idea of saying yes to this make me feel expansive or contracted? And in the nanosecond after you ask that question, you find a pit in your stomach or a sense of dread, or your shoulders kind of hunching forward, or even your body just shaking back in space, or your head saying no. That's your intuition trying to save your butt and tell you don't move ahead with this. And here's why this is so important, Jay. Because often when we're faced with an opportunity that our ego thinks we should move ahead with, right? Either there's a significant amount of money on the line, or some type of opportunity that we feel will give us an edge, something beyond the competition, or put us on a level that we're playing in a field that we're like, yeah, now we've really made it. And it looks good on paper, but something inside is like not right. That's when we need to listen to this most and use this test, because I don't know if you've experienced this. When you override those little feelings of dread, even though everything looks so cool on paper, that's when we get ourselves into trouble and get off track.
Rule number 2, get specific and consistent.
Why do we stop doing the things that we all know are good for us, especially when we've been able to make the time before? It's a head scratcher, am I right? Now, obviously, it makes no logical sense, right? But then again, we know that we human beings are not logical creatures. We are emotional and often irrational when it comes to our behavior. Now, the truth is, there are a gajillion different reasons why many of us stop doing the things that we know are good for us. Some people just get bored, right? Some people rebel against any kind of structure or authority, even if it's themselves. And some people get off track, like if their schedule changes, or they travel, or somebody gets sick, or something like that. Now, as a coach, I'm usually not a big fan of why questions. First, because in this format, I can't talk with you. I can't get to the root of your specific situation by asking you more questions. But more broadly, why questions can sometimes encourage a little bit of navel gazing, right? And they can easily spiral into beating yourself up, thinking that you suck, or that you're just not built to be consistent and disciplined, all of which is not true. So I think a better, smarter, and more helpful question is, how can I be more consistent in doing the things that I know make me feel good? Or how can I set myself up to win the vast majority of time? Now, those questions are questions that we can tackle. Plus, how questions really aim your brain towards the solution, right? Rather than the problem. That's our everything is figure outable philosophy in action. But before we talk about the how, I do want to make something very, very clear. April, my love, you are not bad and you are not weak for falling off the wagon of being consistent. Virtually everybody I know does stuff like this, including me. That's because we are human, right? We have this vision sometimes of these perfect meditators who meditate twice a day, every day, and never ever miss. Or we hear about people like Jerry Seinfeld, who write a big X on his calendar every day he writes a joke, and that he never breaks his streak. But guess what? Even Jerry Seinfeld doesn't do this. On a Reddit Ask Me Anything, he actually said, "This is hilarious to me that somehow I am getting credit for making an X on a calendar with the Seinfeld productivity program. It's the dumbest non-idea that was not mine, but somehow I'm getting the credit for it." Point here is, you do not have to strive to be this perfect person who does something every single day for the rest of your life, unless that kind of thing really just floats your boat. Now, that said, there are some systems that you can easily put in place to make it easier for yourself to be more consistent on a consistent basis, and some behavioral science that can really give you an edge. Step number 1 is choose one practice or habit, not 17, right? So I love that you mentioned all the kind of things that we like to do in our morning practices. So journaling, exercising, all kinds of things like that. And behavioral science tells us that if you want to be successful in terms of forming a new habit, it is best to focus on one habit, not 5, not 10, and definitely not 27. So I'd encourage you to ask yourself, out of everything that you could do that feels good, which one habit or one practice is going to give you the most bang for the buck, given what you want to experience at this stage and season of your life.
Morning, guys. Again, I'm going to borrow from Les Brown. As you can see, he's got an amazing sense of humor as I'm drawing a lot of my material to remind us to laugh our way to infinite mind wealth. Les Brown, thank you so much. Here's another example. He was talking about money at one point, and we often we don't even realize it, but we self-sabotage ourselves and with the idea that money is the root of all evil, when in fact it's the love of money that's the root of all evil. Well, he was giving an example where he was talking in a speech, and he said something about how most people believe that rich people or people with a lot of money can't be happy. And then he says the example, well, he goes, I'd rather find out for myself. I'd rather become rich and find out for myself if I can be happy. So he puts a positive, laughing spin on it. And I thought, yeah, we got to look at ourselves that way when it comes to money. So yeah, we'd rather find out for ourselves. Let's get rich and find out if we can be happy. Have a great day, everybody.
It's like you really are your only comparison group, especially as you get older, because your life is so idiosyncratic and peculiar. I mean, look, you have to care what other people think. It's stupid to think otherwise, because you have to be social and you have to be aware of what other people are doing and all of that. So this isn't psychopathic individuality, but it is genuinely true that no one has your set of opportunities and limitations. And so the comparison just isn't real. It can't be sufficiently multidimensional. I've met many people who are very, very rich, and you can look at their lives and they have these huge houses and material plenty, and they're shielded from many catastrophes that would hit someone without those resources harder. But their lives are still full of exactly the same troubles that characterize human life in general. And so you compare yourself on one dimension. You don't see, well, the person's worked 80 hours a week for 40 years and it's blown all his relationships out of the water. It's like, yes, he's rich, but he's also old now. And one of the best predictors of wealth is age. Really, do you want to be young and poor or old and rich? It's like, I'd pick young and poor, because you can't buy youth, and that's something that's worth considering. But you don't know what burdens the people you're jealous of, so leave it be. It's not helpful to you to be envious.
Need motivation?
Watch the top 10 with Believe Nation.
Hey, it's Evan Carmichael, and I make these videos because you are probably the most ambitious person in your circle.
But you know you're capable of more, and you get that push by surrounding yourself with the best.
So today, let's learn from one of the best, Jordan Peterson, and my take on his top 50 rules of success. Enjoy.
If you know what you want, then you know when you're failing. If you don't allow yourself to know what you want, you can keep that foggy. If you don't set out the conditions for your success, then you can avoid your responsibility, because again, that's not clear. And the problem with wanting something is that in all probability, you're going to have to work for it. You're going to have to make sacrifices. And it's certainly possible that you want to avoid that. You might be afraid to make it clear because other people could deny it to you too, which is something I write about a fair bit in that chapter. The problem is, and failing to make any of that clear protects you right now, but it's really hard on you over the medium to long term, because if you don't make it clear to yourself what you want or to other people, the probability that you're just going to stumble into it is pretty low. And you can put that off indefinitely day after day, but the problem with that is that you age while you're doing that, and there's obviously a price to be paid for that. So that chapter, that's chapter 3, do not hide things in the fog. I mean, it's a warning about failing to pay attention. Knowledge emerges in a very strange way. It emerges, obviously, when we learn something, we started out by not knowing it. And so what that means is that knowledge goes through a transformation process from being absolutely not there to being explicit and fully detailed. And one step of that process is emotion. And so, for example, you might find yourself frustrated and disappointed about the events of the day, but be unable to exactly specify why. That's extremely common. You go home to your partner and you be in a bad mood, and you'll snap at them for something and they'll say, well, what's up with you? And you'll say, well, nothing, you're just being annoying, when it's perfectly clear to both of you that there is actually something up with you. And then that disappointment and frustration, anger and sadness, let's say, or anxiety, is a sign that something isn't right. But it isn't necessarily that you're repressing knowledge of what's not right. It's that you actually don't know. And the emotion is the first step in the process by which that knowledge emerges. And you might have to sit and think and talk to your partner or to a friend for God only knows how long before you're actually going to put your finger on what it is that you're upset about. And it could be very far removed from whatever happened to trigger you in the moment. And so that's the fog. And you can keep things in the fog just by not doing that. It's really easy. It's no more difficult than just sitting there doing nothing, because creating knowledge is active and difficult. The best advice that you can really give to people who are young is that unless you have very good reason not to, you should do what all people have always done. And so what does that mean? When I see my clinical clients, although I'm not practicing anymore, when I saw my clinical clients, I would evaluate their lives across a number of dimensions. Were they immersed in a network of friendships? Did they have a family? And that could be their family of birth, but also the family that they've produced, their own husband or wife and children, if they were of an age where that was appropriate. Did they have a career or at least a job? And was their job productive and matched well with their abilities and their ambitions? Were they educated to the extent that their intelligence and curiosity might demand? Were they in reasonable physical and mental health, independent of those other areas? All of those things need to be established, and you don't want to question them so much that you don't establish them. You might think of yourself as a rebel and someone who's particularly unique, and it's also possible that you are unique in one or more ways, but fundamentally speaking, if you don't do what everyone else does, then the probability that you're abdicating your responsibility and that you will miss out on something important is extremely high. So, our culture, virtually every movie that's made for children now, you see this coming out of the Disney studios constantly, always concentrates on the special child who's got abilities that no other child has and is being crushed by society into being, unpleasantly normal. And there is a fair bit of crushing that goes along with being socialized, because part of being socialized is to become like everyone else. But you don't want to underestimate the benefit of that. It's very, very difficult to tread your own path, and you're only going to be able to do that in a limited number of areas. You blow apart the social routines, you'll find yourself out there in a domain of chaos that will overwhelm you, and that's not pleasant. You do not want that. With regards to your goals, let's say you don't know what to do. Well, maybe you're high in openness, and so you're pulled in all sorts of directions, or maybe you're low in conscientiousness, or you're confused because you're anxious, or you haven't had any direction, you haven't had good mentoring, et cetera, et cetera. There's lots of reasons. Well, I would say pick something, right? Pick something, a nameable goal, and then try to implement it. And what'll happen?
And back to legs crossed, back straight, eyes closed. Feeling the power of you regaining control of your breathing. No matter how fast your breathing became, your heart started pumping faster, started automatically going faster. Right now, we get to take control of our breathing. To keep our back straight, our eyes closed, and our legs crossed. The same way, we get to take control of our thoughts, our mind, at any time, which will then control our bodies and our feelings directly. powerful you are. But you have to believe 100% in this power, this infinitely intelligent being within you and all of us. You gotta believe with all your heart and soul that you can do something.